Today is August the 13th. Going on right now in Chicago is the Fest for Beatlefans. The 40th anniversary, I believe they said, of the Fest for Beatlefans. They normally have it in New York at the beginning of the year, and the summertime they have it in Chicago. Hyatt Regency O'Hare. It's been at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare for as long as I could remember. I started going in '87. The history of the Fest for Beatlefans, or Beatlefest, happened in '74 when Mark Lapidus wanted to do a Beatles convention in celebration of I think the 10-year anniversary of when the Beatles came to America. He met John, and along with Harry Nilsson, and John said, yeah, go ahead and do it. I'm all in favor of it. So it became an annual thing in New York. It got to Chicago in the 70s, and they also had it going in LA. The last time they did it in LA was, I believe, 2000. And then that was it. But I started going in '87, and in '87, that was the 20th anniversary of Sgt. Pepper, and the CDs first came out, and a lot of hype. And the gym I belonged to at the time, I was, how old was I then? I was 14. And one of the people that was at the gym, said, hey, you're a Beatle fan, so am I. Have you ever gone to Beatlefest? I said, no, I never been to Beatlefest. And they said, you should go. Sent me all the information on it. She used to write an article for Beatlefan, I think it was, on the auction in Chicago, the charity auction in Chicago. And I went in '87, didn't know too much about it, didn't know what it was, and immediately I fell in love with it. And I only went for half of the day. I didn't realize this would have to be an all-day thing. But I went, first time I saw Let It Be on the big screen in the main ballroom, and didn't have enough money to buy things. Well, I had to go back in the following year in '88, which I did. Spent a Sunday there. Spent it on Sunday. Practically the entire day. Actually had some money to buy things. And found myself falling in love with the video rooms. If anybody goes to Beatlefest or Fest for Beatlefans in Chicago, and if you're going during that time, you remember how it was all set up at that point. And starting in the 90s in Chicago, when I was in high school, I became what is known as the people under the stairs. When you went down to the main flea market area, I think it was a ballroom or whatever, the main convention area with the flea market, there was an escalator and stairs, and there was a little area under there where people would gather with acoustic guitars and start jamming. And the jam session would go on and get bigger and bigger and bigger as the weekend would start going. I started hanging out there, as well as making my way to the video rooms. And starting in '92, when I graduated, my parents got me a room at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare as a graduation gift. So I spent the night with my friend Shannon. She went one day with me, and I had to go every single day. In '95, they started having it on 3 days. They had it started at 5 o'clock on a Friday, which is very good. We're going to start it on 5 o'clock on a Friday when people get home from work, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And it became a 3-day affair for me. And 95, 96, and 97 with the Live at the BBC and the anthology hype, everything, those were some of the biggest that I remember. What I like about it, and what I've always had loved about it, is that it's such a love fest for the fans. You see fans that you go there to see the fans that you've met a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago. Not only do you go to spend some money at the flea market or take part in the trivia contest and see Liverpool, which I think is the best Beatles cover band, and hear stories. I know people would like it if Paul McCartney or Ringo show up, but that's just not going to happen, or Yoko shows up. But I was there, Patty. Actually, I wasn't there the year Patty. You know, I was. I was there the year Astrid Kirschner was there, and I got to meet Astrid. But it is such a love fest for the fans. Now, of course, we as Beatle fans, we always have to nitpick about this and that. And the fest has changed over the years. It used to be called Beatle Fest, and now it's called the Fest for Beatlefans. And the website is just called The Fest. That's because after all those years of being in New York and then Chicago and LA, Apple's new legal team somehow got involved in the 90s and sued Mark Lapidus. They couldn't call it Beatlefest anymore. They had to call it the Fest for Beatlefans. And they used to show Beatle films in the main ballroom, usually. It was a schedule. You look forward to it. There's nothing like seeing Beatle movies with Beatle fans. I'm telling you. And you know what I'm talking about, all you fans out there. We could all go over to somebody's house and watch A Hard Day's Night or Help together, and even Magical Mystery Tour, and have a laugh and joke about it. You know, when I would watch A Hard Day's Night at the Fest, people would boo when the businessman on the train came. I was always boo. It was totally fun. They had to stop playing the movies, which is something people still kind of. Why can't we get the movies back? Well, it's a legal thing. And they also cracked down on some of the dealers in the flea market that were selling bootlegs. Well, in my opinion, if Apple's not going to put certain things out, you know, you want to get these things somewhere. So they stopped selling bootleg dealers that have bootlegs. So there's certain spaces that I remember where people used to be in the flea market. But when I moved to Arizona, I couldn't go as much anymore. When I lived in Chicago, I didn't have to stay at the hotel. You know, Hyatt Regency O'Hare is right there by the Rosemont Blue Line stop. And I lived in Jefferson Park, which is a neighborhood on the northwest side of Chicago. And my stop was about 2 stops away from the Rosemont stop. So I'd hop on and I'd walk home. Walk back the next day and get on the train and go. So I didn't have to stay overnight at the Hyatt. But I couldn't go as much as I could. I went back in 2005. And then in 2007, they tried to have it in Vegas. 2 years in a row they had it in Vegas, and I went to it in Vegas. It was good, but it was missing the jam session, people jamming. It was at the Mirage. And then for 2012, as sort of our belated honeymoon, because I turned my wife into a Beatles geek, we went back, and she fell in love with it. She was one of those people under the stairs where we were just singing Beatles songs. That's the ultimate fandom right there, when you are getting together, having a jam session with many different fans. And then they had it in LA in 2014 again for the 50th anniversary, and that was it. Everybody's like hoping, please come back to LA again. We need you on the West Coast here. And so it's I can't afford, because you know it's hard to afford the trip with the hotel and everything now to go to Chicago. And last year, I belonged to a Facebook page called Chicagoland Beatlefans. There was some controversy over Mark Lapidus' daughters. There's always controversy over the Lapidus girls. But Michelle Joni, you know, she said something very nice on the Chicagoland Beatles page last year. Because everybody went and nitpicked to death, even to the point of getting rid of the children's puppet show. No, do not get rid of Bob Abdu's puppet show ever. That's how Harrison loved the Beatles and fell in love when he was there in 2014. We took him to the puppet show and the puppet parade that they did. You know, that's fun for the kids. There's not too many kid things to do, and that puppet show really could make a Beatles fan out of a child. And when Michelle chimed in and basically said, look, I'm here for you guys. I want to make the fest better. You know, I'm taking, you know, I'm a Beatle fan too. Please, give me a break. Because she can be pretty eccentric. And I think that I like that about her. Took me a while to get used to. But everybody clammed up that was bitching and moaning about it when she finally chimed in and said, here, look, give me your feedback. Come on, you want a bitch session? Let's do it. You know, tell me what your issues are. And I'll tell you what we can do and what we can't do. Everybody clammed up. But I miss going to the fest. That was my summer. That was my summer. I miss going to the fest for Beatlefans. I think that Mark Lapidus and Carol Lapidus created something for the fans. And comic book fans have Comic-Con. The Beatlefans have the Fest for Beatles. The Fest for Beatlefans. Unedited, folks. Now, is it like Comic-Con? No, it's not, because Martin Lewis was one of the MCs in Chicago, LA, and New York. Chicago always has Terry Hemmert of WXRT. Right on, Terry. But when he left, he really trashed it and called it a mom-and-pop organization. He thought it was going to be like Comic-Con. Well, Comic-Con has corporate sponsorship. Let's face it, they do. They have a lot of corporate sponsors in there. But I like the family vibe of it. You know, I think that's maybe why I keep going back. And why I miss it. The fact that I can't do it every summer like I used to. But we all grow up and life takes over. So if you've never been to a Fest for Beatlefans, go to it if you're in New York or Chicago. Hopefully we'll get it on the West Coast again, since I now live in Arizona. But it's an amazing experience and something that I will never, ever forget and always want to have a part of my life as a Beatle fan.